Hello everyone, my name is Wolf and today I'm going to build a big but kinda cute dragon in Minecraft. For this one I really wanted to go much bigger than my previous organics, but oh boy did I underestimate the time that is needed to build it. This awesome design is from Misty Biome, thanks very much, I will link to their Twitter down below. So, let's go! Honestly, right at that moment I was quite nervous to even start, as a bigger scale can lead to way bigger mistakes. But once I started, it was just the same process as usual. Because of the limited view I had, I started with marking out the frame I wanted to stay in. Connecting blocks with the WorldEdit line creates a wireframe so you can see where the dragon's body is supposed to be, though that requires some imagination. I do the same for the legs, and because I want the dragon to be in motion, the whole will be asymmetrical. Generally, when you draw or build statues, whether in real life or Minecraft doesn't matter, it looks much better when your creature is moving to make it look alive. I aim for a proud but playful expression of my dragon. These corners in the future legs show how the leg will be bent. When I get the angle right now, I will later just have to thicken it out further, but as always many things will be corrected in the process. To fill in the dragon's body I will make use of a bunch of spears, or a bit later I will just lift it in certain areas. You might be wondering why I am using diamonds to build right now, and that is not just to show off. The color will be added once the shape is finished and smoothed out, so that now I can completely focus on the shape. And diamonds are usually great for this, since you most of the time don't want to use them in your final block palette. Similarly, I will also use gold and emerald blocks later. This general shape is really ragged and uneven, so now is the time I go around and smooth it out. I start with Voxelsniper's blend ball brush, but I also have to go around and fill in holes, punch out weird blocks and establish the shape of the legs, belly and neck. In a build this size, it is a few thousand blocks. Going around and smoothing by hand is definitely worth it, as plugins are only so and so accurate. Also, you will eventually notice when things are a few blocks off, which leads to the next part: fixing mistakes. First of all, I make the body a bit longer, so I select the back half of the dragon using WorldEdit, copy it, remove it and place it around 10 blocks farther away. The gap in between I simply fill in and so connect both sides. It is difficult to see from this angle, but I also made the tail a bit longer. Then also the chest area is lacking a few layers of blocks, and I also bulked up the legs more. Of course I have to go over all these areas again and smooth them out a second time. But these tiny adjustments make the difference between a good and a great build. Also, it is about time to shape the head. I plan on having the dragon's mouth being open a bit, so later you can see its teeth. The eyes are just so big I can detail them later with different blocks. The only thing missing now are the feet, and according to the design the dragon has 3 toes with claws. At the same time I built those, I also improved the legs further and smoothed them out. Until now that didn't get a lot of attention, and with all of that we have a general shape of the dragon, and it is now time for the details. As seen in the concept art, the dragon has 2 rows of spikes on his back reaching from nose to tail tip. The spikes on the tail are more like plates on a stegosaurus though. To save a bit of time I decided to color them directly, and so I have to work on each one just one time. So I started the tail with the 4 longest and spikiest ones. You know, counting them all there are over 100, so whenever I can I will copy and flip one for the other side. I still built a good part of them one by one because of the curved shape of the tail. Color-wise the plates are really colorful, with the gradient going from light blue to dark blue. I especially like how the blue eyes blocks stand out. The plates have a trim of black, for which I am using both coral and black wool. The orange of the spikes work really well with the cyan of the dragon. To build them I create a line going to the tip of the future plate, and first of all have a look whether it's the right angle. Then I make a cross out of it, connect all points and fill it in. The spikes on the back are a lot smaller and less detailed, and so I built one and pasted it in 2 rows going all the way to the neck. The ones on the neck I built again by hand because of the different angles. Unfortunately I forgot the part where I built the crown-like thing of the dragon's head, but like the plates it has a gradient. The tips are curled forward and generally it's quite interesting to look at. The color gave me a bit of a headache. In the concept art, the dragon has a gradient going from a light swan to something yellowish, and for neither of those colors I found fitting blocks. So I improvised a bit and made the dragon mainly out of prismarine in the beginning. The underside is yellowish, so I used smooth sandstone and stripped birch logs. I decided that instead of a gradient I was going to use a strict line, which also works just fine. Other than that, the dragon has stripes all over its body, and so I started at the tail tip. These stripes are a bit darker, and one detail that I really like about the dragon's design are these little orange and white dots. For those I'm using orange concrete and frog lights. After a while I switched over to using a WorldEdit brush to get most of the stripes down, but of course I have to correct every one of those as it isn't that accurate. For the inside of the dragon's mouth I just use red blocks, and I don't see a need to texture it because no one is going to see it. The teeth though are meticulously placed as it isn't supposed to end up derpy. This is also the point where I adjusted a few minor things I couldn't live with, one of them being the head. It didn't look quite right as is, and again it's just a few blocks that are off. But like this, it looks a lot better and more like it is supposed to. Now I know I changed up a lot, but hear me out on my block palette. Currently I'm using mainly prismarine bricks, but I don't have any option to have lighter areas than that because there is a difference between cyan and blue, and because of that I can't just use blue blocks. So I eventually decided to go for the slightly darker stripped wood, and the stripes are now cyan wool and concrete. Like this I can use the prismarine to transition to the smooth sandstone. Now, this is a dragon, so it needs wings to fly. Getting the frame down was a bit tricky because in first person I just can't see it all. So I had to take many steps back and adjust the points I wanted to connect. Eventually I came up with two options and I decided to go with the bigger one. When we think about it, even these might be too small to actually fly, but you know, magic. Then I bulked it all up, and from there I went from section to section smoothing out. To fill the wings in, I divided these gaps into sections and fill them in block for block by hand. I must admit I would never want to build this in survival. What you see now is a time lapse of a few seconds, but in reality it took a few hours. And that is why I decided against building a second different ring for the other side. Eventually I had everything filled in, it was time to add the color. The cyan is a bit darker than the body, and so I added warped blanks, dark prismarine and even some deep slate for grey to my block palette. These ends also get 3 orange claws which stand out nicely. The wings will have a gradient going from dark orange to yellow. Block-wise I used orange terracotta, red sandstone, orange concrete, orange wool, honeycomb blocks and yellow concrete. From close up the honeycomb looks a bit weird, but from farther away it's looking great and is tying the orange and yellow together nicely. Nearly forgot this part. And a few more details and one ring is finished. As mentioned before, there is no way I'm building another ring, so I copy, flip and paste it. Looks good enough too. I make sure to just get the ring in my selection, so the last thing I have to do is to connect the ring to the body. Because Minecraft lighting isn't working out for this build, I place light blocks under the dragon's wings and body. Otherwise it would just be black. Of course, now that the dragon is finally finished, it of course needs something around him. Because he's really colorful himself, I wanted to go with something more neutral, so I started with a really big platform. Place the dragon on top and start to terraform the surroundings. Honestly, I find this part extremely boring, but sometimes one has to do what one has to do. So I take a WorldEdit brush and make the terrain uneven. You can clearly see the shape of the cycles, so the main part will later be to make it look more natural. The mountains are more likely big rocks, which are now adding a scale to the dragon, like he's not actually 200 meters high. At some point I replace the diamonds with packed mud, and of course the rocks are going to be grey. But I didn't really like that plain brown color, so eventually I made most of it green using moss blocks. Further, I am sprinkling the packed mud with coarse dirt to help it transition to the moss. Generally, I try to bring in some texture so that the surrounding isn't looking too plain compared with the detailed dragon. though I usually would go in and place most blocks by hand to have these patches kinda sorted. This time a nosy pattern has to be fine though. As finishing touches I place around some plants, firstly a weird tentacle one, a blue-orange flowery one matching the dragon, and some grass. Minecraft grass wouldn't even be visible, I guess. And to add some more texture, I sprinkle some grass blocks into the moss for a different color. And I guess with that I can call this build finished. Now let's have a look. It turned out to be quite difficult to show because of its size, but there you go. I love how it turned out, especially the plates on its tail and its expression. Its wingspan measures a whole 460 blocks, which is even bigger than I anticipated in the beginning. I never really showed how I built the eyes, but I used a combination of different blocks and added an end rod as a reflection. But seriously, showing this build is kinda difficult, so I went ahead and rendered that thing. This is actually the first time I too can really have a look from all sides without the stupid lighting bug. Please someone fix it. Just for fun though, I wondered what a simple house would look like next to the dragon. It's tiny. And one of my autogenics? Also small. Well, I hope you like this dragon as much as I do. Usually I don't ask for likes, but if you liked this video, please consider it, as a lot of time and work went into this one. Thanks for watching, and until the next time, goodbye!